Pause for a second, feel that quiet under the noise, the steady hum beneath the day's rush. That isn't emptiness, it's presence. You've been moving through a world that calls itself awake yet sleepwalks through meaning, and meanwhile something inside you has refused to go numb. You've tried to fit the molds, soften the edges, mute the sensitivity that sees through small talk and hears what isn't said, and it never worked. Not because you're fragile, not because you're broken, because you were marked. Long before this lifetime, signals were set like constellations in your being, old codes in a language older than clocks. That's why you're here now. You didn't stumble across this message. It found you the way a homing note finds a tuning fork. The shiver that ran your spine when you pressed play wasn't coincidence, it was remembrance catching fire. There is a wisdom that survives in silence, and yours has been carefully kept. Think of all the hours you felt out of place and called it loneliness when it was really protection, the sheltered ground where your true frequency could root without being trampled. You were never small, you were hidden. Never late, only preserved. And the preserving had purpose, to prepare you for an hour when the veil would thin and the ones carrying the signs would feel their names spoken again. The M that lives where your lifelines converge, the crescent arc that skims your palm like first light, the sacred sensitivity you were told to toughen, these were never flaws to fix. They are proof you were written with a different ink. Call it Thoth's whisper. Call it a covenant older than your birth certificate, either way, it is reawakening. Not everyone can carry this frequency. Not everyone can bear the hush required to hear truth without a microphone, but you could. You were designed to stand still where others fidget, to listen where others scroll, to feel without apologizing for how deep the river runs. The weight you've carried, the ache you survived, the battles that left you wiser than your years, none of it was punishment, it was refinement. Fire that didn't scar you, it tempered you. Now the metal rings clear. So don't gaslight your own soul. Don't downplay the pulse that's rising as you listen. Breathe. Let your shoulders drop. Let the gates swing. This moment is not entertainment, it's reclamation. It's you taking back what boredom stole, what shame mislabeled, what fear tried to drown with busyness. You are not behind. You are precisely on time. You are not broken. You are encoded. And the code is waking up. If even a flicker inside you said yes, mark it. Right, I feel it. In the comments, not for vanity, but as a quiet contract with the unseen. I am listening. I am willing. Then subscribe not for algorithms, but as a step across the threshold, a planted flag that says you choose remembrance over routine. From here, we'll walk with clarity and warmth, no gimmicks, no superstition, so that what Thoth preserved across millennia becomes practical in your Mondays, audible in your prayers, visible in your choices. The call has arrived. All that's left is your answer. Open your hands like you're opening a book that remembers more about you than you do. Let your eyes settle on what you've called just skin for years. See how the lines braid and bend, how pathways cross like rivers that knew their destination long before you learned the word destiny. There it is, the faint yet stubborn M, formed where heart, head, and life conspire. There, too, the soft arc of a crescent, a sliver of dawn resting below your fingers as if the night itself left you a promise. You didn't carve these, time didn't toss them like dice. They were placed quietly, precisely like a seal pressed into soft wax, the day your spirit agreed to carry what ordinary days could never explain. Before alphabets chose shapes for sound, there was a language that wrote on breath, on bone, on the unseen electricity running underneath a human life. In that older tongue, symbols are not worn, they are lived. The M is memory of missions begun in other hours, of vows you made in the hush before you were given a name. The crescent is momentum of cycles honored, of light returning, of intuition that refuses to apologize for being right too soon. And your sensitivity, the one the world tried to rename as too much, is not a crack to be plastered over. It is your instrument set to a truer pitch. You did not make these marks. They made you ready. Think back. You felt rooms before you entered them. You heard the second meaning hiding inside first sentences. You carried the ache of strangers home like it had your address on it. People called it dramatic, naive, inconvenient. So you tried to harden. You practiced being breezy. You learned how to nod and swallow the aftertaste of lies spoken with charming mouths. But the truth refused to go quiet. The more you tried to numb, the louder the pulse became, not noise, but guidance. Not panic, but presence. The marks were already preaching long sermons in short whispers. Do not trade sight for approval. Do not trade depth for speed. This is why your presence unsettled some and steadied others. Why conversation tilted toward confession in your orbit. Why children and animals recognized you with the kind of trust adults forget. Why silence sometimes followed you into a room as if the air itself were clearing its throat. You weren't being dramatic. You were being announced. The signs on your body were coordinating with the signs in your story, small mercies, precise timings, the way closed doors rescued you from rooms that would have cost you your peace. It wasn't luck, it was lineage. The ancients understood this. Call it Thoth's archive, call it a covenant of symbols, either way. The wisdom survived by hiding in plain sight, stashed where no empire could burn it, inside the human frame. Not everyone can carry this frequency, not everyone is meant to. That's why your path felt narrow when everyone else swore the highway was fine. That's why the crowd's applause grew thinner the moment you refused to betray your knowing. The marks did not make you better, they made you responsible. They tethered you to a rhythm that doesn't rush, to a truth that doesn't need a stage, to a timing that doesn't answer to fear. Look again at your hands. Trace the M like you're retracing a route you walked in another season. Let the crescent remind you that beginnings love to disguise themselves as slivers, not spotlights. Notice what rises in your chest when you stop calling these patterns random. A warmth, a settling, a sense that you're being reintroduced to yourself without the costume. That feeling is recognition. It is your spirit nodding at an old agreement. To be a vessel of remembrance in a culture of forgetting. To be a keeper of peace in a century addicted to adrenaline. To be a witness that refuses to weaponize truth. You were not sent to impress. You were sent to align. The signs didn't appear to decorate your biography. They appeared to anchor your becoming. They will not tell you every next move, but they will calibrate the mover. They will keep your compassion soft while your spine stays firm. They will teach your love to be clean even when the room gets cloudy. And as you honor them by trusting the quiet nudge over the loud trend, by protecting the oil of your peace, by telling the short, true sentence when flattery would sell faster, you will feel the old language return. Not in thunder, but in resonance. Not in spectacle, but in strength. So here is the invitation. Stop arguing with your design. Stop asking your soul to shrink so that small tables stay comfortable. Let your hands testify. Let your sensitivity be promotion, not penalty. Let the ancient code do what it came to do, wake you past pretending, guide you past performance, and set you on the path where what you carry is not a secret anymore, but a service. The signs have always been with you, now let them be in front of you. The moment you do, the map you've been trying to borrow from others will fold itself up, and the one you were born with will open line by line, curve by curve, until the way ahead looks less like guesswork and more like a promise kept. There is a fatigue that vitamins cannot touch. It isn't the ache of a long shift or the hangover of too little sleep. It's the heaviness that wakes up before you do, the kind that sits behind your ribs like weather. You open your eyes already tired, as if your soul spent the night working overtime in rooms your body never entered. You move through ordinary moments and pay extraordinary prices for them. A simple conversation leaves you dim, a crowded room feels like wading through static. Even quiet doesn't refresh you, because in the quiet, your spirit is still on duty, holding, absorbing, translating signals no one else remembers exist. This is what happens when you are born tuned to a finer frequency. Your field is porous, on purpose. You were designed to register the tremor in a voice that says, "I'm fine." You were calibrated to notice the grief behind a smile, the fear hiding inside a joke, the tension that lingers in a house long after the argument ended. Before anyone taught you the language of energy, your body already spoke it. But because the people around you didn't, they named your fluency a flaw. They called you dramatic, delicate, too much. And slowly you did what sensitive souls so often do. You turned your brilliance into a burden and tried to carry the world to prove you weren't a problem. No one told you that compassion without containment becomes collapse. No one taught you that love without boundaries is just extraction with nicer lighting, so you became a harbor with no breakwater. Storms rushed in anger with no apology, sorrow with no outlet, fear with no name, and you took it all personally because you felt it all physically. People vented and left lighter. You listened and left heavier. You mistook depletion for devotion. You wore exhaustion like a halo because somewhere you learned that bleeding is how good people prove they are good. But heaviness has fingerprints. The fog that wraps your mind after a particular call, the lead that settles in your chest when you leave a certain space, the mood crash that arrives with no logical cause. After a polite coffee, these are not mysteries without meaning. They are receipts, energy moved from them to you. Not always by malice, often by habit. Still, your field paid the bill. When these exchanges repeat, shame creeps in to finish the job. You start telling yourself the old poisonous story that you are fragile, broken, pathetic for needing recovery from nothing. Shame becomes the heaviest thing you carry because it convinces you to hide the wound that would heal faster in light. Listen closely. You were never cursed. You were conditioned. Conditioned to confuse absorption with empathy. Conditioned to equate being good with being available. Conditioned to serve until you disappeared. That conditioning felt righteous because it was rewarded. People praised your big heart, even as it frayed. But the truth is kinder and cleaner than the myth. Your sensitivity is not the problem. The problem is that you weren't taught stewardship. Your field did what it was designed to do, perceive. No one showed you how to decide what to keep. This invisible labor stretches backward too. Some of what weighs you down didn't start with you. Families outsource what they won't face. Generations pass along silence like furniture. The secret no one mentions. The grief no one names. The anger baptized as just how we are. Sensitive ones become the storage units for what a lineage refuses to process. Add to that the ambient fear of an anxious world, and the result is predictable. You think your soul is weak when it is simply full. The evidence that you were marked is that, under all this weight, your light did not extinguish. It flickered, yes. It hid, often. But it did not go out. That is not the proof of your failure. It is the proof of your design. Only a spirit built for awakening could carry so much unasked for static and still hunger for clarity. Only a heart made to remember could absorb so much forgetting and still reach for truth. So what changes when you stop treating your sensitivity like a liability? Everything beginning with your posture. Instead of meeting every signal with an open gate, you learn to meet it with an open eye and a wise threshold. You don't harden, you hone. You let what is yours land and what is not yours pass through. You stop offering your nervous system as a landfill. You start curating your inputs the way artists curate light on purpose, with reverence for what they are trying to make. You notice which rooms cost you your peace and which rooms refund it. You choose accordingly, without sermons or apologies. You also let love grow a spine. Love that rescues without discernment breeds dependency, not healing. Love that listens without limits becomes a drain, not a river. Real love tells the truth about capacity. It says, I can sit with you, but I cannot swallow you. It says, I will pray with you, but my peace is not the price of your comfort. It says, I am responsible to you, not for you. These sentences feel cruel to people, addicted to your self-erasure. They will call your boundaries betrayal. They are wrong. Your boundaries are bridges for healthy connection and barriers against quiet theft. They are the architecture that keeps your gift from becoming your grave. Recovery for the sensitive is rarely dramatic. It looks like simple faithfulness to what regulates you. The morning you choose breath before feed. The afternoon you put your phone face down and let silence rinse your mind. The evening you leave a conversation when your peace begins to cough. The way you notice your body's early warnings, your jaw tightening, your shoulders inching up, and you intervene with kindness before your system floods. The way you tell the short, true sentence instead of performing a paragraph you don't mean. The way you stop arguing with your intuition because it keeps being right. There will be relapses into old heroics. You will feel the itch to be the answer again. especially with people whose stories you've been carrying like unpaid debt. When you notice the itch, bless it as a sign of how much you care, and then refuse to make caring and self-erasure synonyms. Offer presence, not rescue. Offer prayer, not possession. Offer truth, not theater. Watch how the relationships that were built on extraction fall quiet when the faucet closes. Let them. Empty space is not failure. It is room for the right things to grow. As your field clears, you will learn the difference in your body between real service and self-sacrifice. Real service leaves you grounded and quietly grateful. Self-sacrifice leaves you buzzing and brittle. Real service returns you to yourself. Self-sacrifice scatters you. Real service makes your peace stronger. Self-sacrifice makes your peace negotiable. Keep choosing what strengthens you. Strength is not selfish when your call is to carry light. There's a final mercy hidden inside the fatigue you hate. It has been your teacher. Exhaustion showed you, better than any lecture, where your energy was leaking. It circled the rooms that cost too much. It highlighted the names that demanded what love never asks for. It exposed the scripts that made you small in order to make others comfortable. Now that you can read those signals, exhaustion doesn't have to be your constant companion. It can step back and let wisdom lead. You are not broken. You are beautifully permeable, and now you're learning permeability with choice. You are not fragile. You are finely tuned, and now you're choosing what you tune to. You are not weak. You are wired for resonance, and now you're letting resonance be regulated by truth. The weight you've carried was real, but it was never your name. Begin releasing it with the same reverence you used to carry it. Bless what is not yours and send it home. Welcome what is yours and let it root. Watch the fog lift, feel your breath drop. Remember, in your bones, how light you actually are. The moment you recognize the bars, they begin to loosen. Not because you kicked hard enough, but because recognition dissolves agreements you never knew you made. The mind will try to complicate this, drafting 100 fixes, hunting for an initiation you haven't earned, but the door yields to simpler work, remembering who is walking through it. Start with the body, because the body is the first altar you were given. Feel how your breath sits when the old program speaks the shallow lift, the hurried top of the chest sip. Then feel what happens when you let the breath fall lower, like a stone returning to riverbed. In that small descent, the nervous system hears a new story. The prison script feeds on urgency. Presence starves it. Place a hand where the breath lands and let your palm remind your ribs that you are not in yesterday's room. You are here. You are safe enough to hear what is true. Let your mouth learn one clean sentence that fits like armor from the inside. Not a speech, not a defense. Something short that keeps you whole while you stay kind. I can be present without absorbing. I can love without carrying. That fear is old, and I am not. Whisper it when the heaviness tries to pass itself off as reality. Whisper it when the inherited tremor wakes at the threshold of asking, at the edge of visibility, at the first sign of joy your lineage didn't know how to trust. The sentence won't perform the miracle for you. It will keep your footing while the miracle unfolds. Notice how the walls prefer noise. They will offer you a dozen distractions dressed as urgency, and every one of them will promise relief from the discomfort of reclaiming yourself. Do the smaller, braver thing instead. Wash the dish slowly enough to feel the water warm your fingers. Open the window and let the actual weather contradict the storm in your head. Finish the page you avoided, the apology you owe, the nap you have postponed long enough to call it virtue. A prison can survive your rage longer than it can survive your coherence. Coherence is a key disguised as ordinary faithfulness. When old stories rise, let them finish their sentence without giving them your name. You can hear a thought say, "People like me don't," and still answer, "I'm changing the category." You can feel the family ghost scarcity, silence, self-erasure, try to pull rank, and still reply, "I honor what kept you alive, and I release what keeps me small." You are not warring with ancestors. You are graduating their strategies. What they used to survive, you are free to outgrow. This is how love moves forward without dragging chains. Presence is the soil, intention is the seed. Together, they become a current that rearranges what orbits you. Stand in a doorway you pass a dozen times a day, and let that threshold remember its meaning. Inhale with the clear aim of calling your spirit home. Exhale with the quiet command that anything not yours must go where it belongs. You don't need incense or a script, you need honesty that reaches the body. When your awareness and your will meet in one place, your field hears the reunion and tightens its weave. Leaks close, static fades. Rooms feel different without anyone else behaving better, because you stopped outsourcing your atmosphere. You will be tempted to announce your jailbreak to every witness you can find. Resist the theater. Sacred revolutions keep their volume low until the roots are stable. Tell one wise friend if you must. Tell God the rest. Let your days preach on your behalf. Steadier yeses, cleaner no's. Laughter that returns without a bargain. Work that no longer needs applause to be excellent. The invisible prison counts on you to need an audience. Freedom does not. There will be echoes. Patterns do not vanish on the first sunlight, they thin. One morning, the old panic will knock with the same timing it always chose, and your body will do something you haven't seen it do before. It will wait. The breath will hold its ground. The hand will not reach for the familiar distraction. The mind will remember, without ceremony, that the door is open. That is not a small victory. That is new architecture being installed where scaffolding used to sway. If the prison was built from inherited silence, your freedom will sound like gentle speech. If the prison was built from scarcity, your freedom will feel like unhurried generosity that does not betray your needs. If the prison was built from being the family's storm drain, your freedom will look like staying soft while you stop being the container. You do not become cruel to stop being consumed. You become clear. Clarity is compassion with a backbone. There is a point in every breaking where the past tries to bargain. It will offer you old comfort at a discount if you'll just stop. You'll recognize the offer by the way your peace is the price. Decline with gratitude. Thank the pattern for what it taught you about your own endurance. Thank the mask for the seasons it kept you safe in rooms that didn't know your language. Then set them both down like clothes that no longer fit the weather. You are not rejecting yourself. You are traveling light. Remember the promise tucked into Thoth's quiet science. Reality bends toward coherence. You do not need to punch the wall for it to move. Align and it will. Anchor and it will. Choose one act today that proves to your body what your spirit already knows. Stand barefoot on actual ground and let your souls finish a prayer your mouth can't yet say. Drink water as if you were returning it to a field that has been in drought. Put your name on a page that belongs to your future, a calendar block, a boundary emailed, a first paragraph finally written. The invisible prison cannot keep up with evidence. If something in you is warmer right now, if your shoulders have fallen a fraction, if your jaw unclenches without permission, seal it. Not with volume, with vow. Tell the air, I am breaking the prison. Tell your breath, we are staying. Tell your future, I am coming the honest way. Then walk, not to prove it to anyone watching, but to keep the path warm for the you who will be grateful tomorrow that you did not wait for perfect courage to begin. The door is open. It always was. Step through as many times as it takes until walking free feels as familiar as walking caged once did. Presence will meet you at every threshold. Intention will keep the hinges oiled. And the light that spills in quiet, ordinary, relentless, will show you what the walls were hiding. A life scaled to your actual size, a voice that does not apologize for being true, a peace that does not audition. Keep going. The prison was never your name. Before anything had a name, before light learned to travel and sound learned to sing, there was a tone steady, incorruptible, uncreated. Not feeling, not longing, not romance dressed as rescue, but love as frequency. The original resonance that threads galaxies, steadies oceans, and keeps breath moving through dust. Every true healing is that tone remembered. Every true awakening is that tone restored. And every chosen soul is a living instrument, tuned across lifetimes to carry that note where noise has won too long. The world tried to shrink love into appetite and transaction, a market of attention and applause. It tried to train you to confuse adrenaline for aliveness, attachment for devotion, and survival for purpose. But what the ancients guarded, and what Thoth encrypted into symbol and silence, was never for sale. Love was never a feeling to chase. Love was the field you were born from, the atmosphere your spirit breathes, the architecture of reality itself. You do not persuade love to arrive. You let what has always been true reclaim the room. This is why you felt out of place in rooms where everyone seemed fine. Your body registered static where your spirit knew there should be song. It is why your sensitivity refused to die, even when shame called it weakness and exhaustion tried to make it an enemy. Sensitivity is not fragility. It is fidelity to the signal. It is proof that your receiver still works. The weariness you've carried wasn't evidence of defect, it was evidence of capacity. Years of absorbing what wasn't yours, years of mistaking collapse for kindness, years of walking through fields of unprocessed grief and keeping your light lit anyway. Now you know better. Presence gathers what was scattered, intention aims what was leaking. And love as frequency, not performance, does what effort could never do. It harmonizes what obeys and dissolves what cannot. You were not late, you were hidden. You were kept beneath the noise until the hour when remembrance would do more than inspire, it would reconfigure. The marks in your palm, the crescent's quiet arc, the intuition that predicted storms before they formed, these were never curiosities, they were coordinates. They were the proof that your life was laid along a geometry older than empires and kinder than fate. When the veil thinned, those signs did not become magic, they became mirrors. They returned you to the truth you carried under every costume. You are not here to echo panic, you are here to restore pitch. Love like this does not argue with shadows, it outlasts them. It does not hurry miracle, it hosts it. It does not force alignment, it radiates coherence until dissonance has no air left. When you give your nervous system back to presence, the field around you hears the correction. Rooms soften without anyone losing face. Conversations uncoil without anyone being shamed. Patterns that once demanded spectacle begin to fall quiet, the way a storm runs out of rain when land refuses to collapse beneath it. This is not your cleverness, this is the tone working through a willing instrument. Some will draw near to that tone without knowing why. Some will back away because their scaffolding rattles when reality stabilizes. Neither response needs your defense. When love moves as frequency, your task is not to convince, it is to remain, to keep your altar warm, to protect your oil, to let your yes be steady and your no be kind. You become the weather where truth can grow, not a hurricane, but a climate predictable enough for seeds to risk sprouting, generous enough for the wounded to rest without auditioning for safety. This is why you were trained in silence. This is why doors closed on timelines that would have flattered your hunger but starved your purpose. This is why you learned to bless what you could not hurry, to release what would not stay, and to let God's timing correct your need to be impressive. Love as frequency is not showy, it is stubbornly faithful. It keeps its promises to reality. It builds foundations that do not betray the weight they will one day carry. You have also learned the gentler warfare of this way. You no longer swing at people for what patterns taught them to be. You rename the adversary accurately, fear dressed as wisdom, shame disguised as humility, pride posing as strength, distraction pretending to be destiny, and you answer with a steadiness arguments cannot counterfeit. Your boundaries stopped being barbed wire and became doors on hinges. They open where honor lives and close where your peace begins to cough. You do not punish, you calibrate. You do not withhold love. You refuse to mislabel control as care. That difference is the difference between a rescuer and a healer, between a savior impulse and a servant kingdom. And now the secret stands in clear light. Love is not your destination. Love is your design. You are not moving toward it as a prize. You are moving from it as a source. When desire rises, you no longer panic at its heat. You ask it what it wants to create. When loneliness knocks, you do not hire counterfeit company. You deepen presence until intention can hear its next assignment. When old programming tries to rebuild the invisible prison around your voice, you breathe, you return, you remember. I can be present without absorbing. I can love without carrying. That fear is old, and I am not. In that remembrance, the wall remembers it was fog. What does this look like in a life that touches the ground? It looks like work done with clean hands when nobody's clapping. It looks like sleep received as faith, not as escape. It looks like words chosen for truth, not for theater. It looks like generosity that honors limits and service that does not mortgage your soul. It looks like prayer that blesses more than it bargains, and intercession that protects someone's process rather than auditioning for their gratitude. It looks like joy that is not loud, but durable. Like grief that is not hidden, but holy. Like decisions made in peace and held without apology. You do not need a platform to radiate this. Children will feel it first. Strangers will steady without knowing why. Environments that once demanded you split in two will quietly stop hiring your divided self. Callings will clarify. Relationships will either harmonize or recede with minimal drama because your life has stopped bidding for what cannot respect its cadence. None of this is punishment. It is pruning. Pruning is how gardens keep their promise to spring. So let us seal this hour the way the ancients sealed thresholds, not with noise, but with vow. Place a hand over the center of your chest and let your breath fall like a stone to riverbed. Say softly and truthfully, I remember, I return, I radiate. Let the words be less a performance and more a permission. You are not asking for access to a distant temple, you are unlocking the one you carry. Let the field take its shape around that remembering. Let your body believe you. If this word met you where you needed meeting, mark the moment. Write, I remember, or I choose the frequency, not for my sake, but to anchor your own. Subscribe if your spirit says yes, not to collect content, but to keep covenant with the path you've just named. Let it be a small altar you can return to on the days you forget what you already know. Rise, chosen one, not spotless but honest, not finished but faithful, not louder but clearer. Rise with the signs you carry and the scars you no longer hide. Rise with the coherence that makes rooms safer and the humility that keeps heaven close. The veil is thin, the gate is open, the tone is in you and moving through you now. Go where noise has conquered and refused to duel it, outlove it. Go where fear has set the pace and refused to race it, outlast it. Go where shame has named the room and rename it beloved. This is not an ending. This is your return to the frequency that began you. Hold your light steady. Guard your peace like oil. Let your presence tell the truth before your mouth has to. And when people ask, because they will, how the atmosphere changed without a fight, you will smile, the simplest sentence a free soul can say. God did this.